Good morning, online class. This is Miss Moore here for our final week of class. I can't believe it's already over, but we do have this final week to finish up your narrative essay. This essay, number 6, is considered your final for the class. And so once you turn in this essay on Sunday evening, you will be finished with your coursework for this class. And I will be getting you as many grades back before then as possible. And so you see my number 1 on my class notes for this week my priority is to get you graded Essay 5 back as soon as possible, just so that you'll be able to see how well you did on that essay. And hopefully that will lead to a class average to give you so that you can have a better idea of how you're doing in the class as a whole. I want that class average to include all of your mind tap exercises, so I'll be working on that. Also, I noticed I haven't replied to emails today, but I have noticed that many of you had problems with mind tap this weekend. Again, I realize that those problems are going to happen, and so I thank you for letting me know, and just know that I will, depending on the case, either completely delete that assignment or I will factor that into the number of assignments I allow to be dropped from your mind tap grades. So just know that will be taken care of. If I've not replied to your email, I probably will not reply until tomorrow. So just be aware of that and know that I'm working on that. Okay, so let's talk about this week, our final week. I've got a schedule up for you. It's going to be important that you know the due dates this week and are aware of when everything's due. So this week you're going to do some process work on your final essay, but unlike previous weeks, we're not going to have a peer review on this essay. So I want to see how you can do on your own as you finish up the class. So the things that we are going to have, number 1, what you're looking towards is Wednesday evening. You need to have an outline and a rough thesis turned in the Turn It In assignment in your week 15 folder. I will talk a little bit more about what this outline should look like, but basically I'm just wanting you to by then know the topic and know kind of the lesson that your reflection, that your narration is going to give us. By Friday evening, you will need to turn in a rough draft of this essay. Now, this essay is supposed to be 1 to 2 pages long, and I don't know if I put that on the assignment sheet. No, the assignment sheet does not have that on there. So know that this is supposed to be 1 to 2 pages long. I've not put that on the assignment sheet. That is your limit. I really do not want them to go over 2 pages because that is showing me that you can write a confined narrative, and that's really important. Okay, so back to the schedule. Rough draft, meaning 1 to 2 pages, is due Friday night. Again, that assignment is up in Blackboard in a Turn It In assignment. Finally, on Sunday, you've got the final copy of the essay due, and also your final mind tap assignment is due that night as well. So 2 more things on Sunday, your final copy of Essay 6, which is a Turn It In assignment, and then your final mind tap exercise. Okay, so hopefully everyone's good with the schedule. Don't forget these dates as they come near. Wednesday, of course, outline and thesis due. So let's talk a little bit about this. Of course, we talked about this last week, and hopefully you read your chapter last week and you began thinking about a topic to choose for your narrative essay. One thing that, again, I just wanted to reiterate are a couple of things. Remember when you choose the topic that I'm going to be grading this, and so it's really hard for me to grade a topic that is deeply, deeply personal. Again, that's why I give the cake example. If you remember that from last week, one of the best narratives I've had was just a simple story about baking a cake. So please, please think about that when you're choosing a topic. Don't choose a topic that is too hard to write on. Choose a topic that's manageable, that's meaningful, but not deeply, deeply personal. Remember that too when I grade it, because I'm not grading you on the experience, I'm not grading you on the story itself, I'm grading you on how you've presented the story based on our discussion of narration, description, and reflection. So please keep that in mind as you choose your topic. Also, keep in mind as you choose your topic that you should choose a small but significant experience. In other words, I don't want to hear about a year of your life. That's too long for 2 pages. You need to choose a very small amount of time. And some examples of this would be the sample essays in your book that hopefully you've read over this coming week or last week. So think back to those sample essays and maybe even turn with me to them. For example, on page 144, the topic is the narrator going to the cemetery with his friend Ryan. That main story, happened within an hour. It's not a long, drawn-out series of events. Same thing for the next sample essay on page 148, Spare Change. This encounter happened probably within an hour as well. I don't remember exactly. These are not huge events. They're very small, very limited amounts of time. So 2 things, back to my outline, 2 things when choosing a topic in a thesis. Choosing a topic, I should say. Choose a interesting and insightful but not deeply personal topic. And choose a topic that is short and that can be discussed in 1 to 2 pages. Okay, thinking about your thesis along with this topic, all you want to do is simply ask your question, what do I want readers to learn from this experience? What do I want my readers to take from this experience? So again, I want to reference the 2 essays that I just talked about. Exploring a Community on 144, the entomology of village life. This essay's thesis or idea would be what do we learn from it? Maybe we learn that we shouldn't gossip, that we should treat others with respect because we never know when that will be given back to us. The example would be old Jack being the spider growing fat on gossip, but what happens when the narrator and his friend go to the cemetery? They get some dirt on Jack's grandson, and he has to learn the hard way that gossip can be bad. So that could be something we learn from this essay. How do we know that? Well, we know that from the details that the writer gives us. The writer gives us that metaphor of the spider and the moth, and then he describes the spider and the moth and this particular event. Another example of a thesis would be looking at Spare Change. We get this encounter with the narrator and this woman who she kind of judges harshly from the beginning, but she learns a lot about this woman and she learns how she's struggling. And by the end of the essay on page 150, we get the narrator reflecting, and she says, "I wonder as I hurry towards the station if she'll be okay, if her boyfriend really will get out of jail, and if her grandmother ever will take her back. Either way, I think as I cross Bay Street, what more can I do? I have a bus to catch." So she kind of starts reflecting on, how little she's really done for this person, and maybe we need to do more for the suffering people around us. Maybe we need to not judge a book by its cover. Maybe we need to look into people's lives and realize that everyone's suffering. These are just some ideas that the writer might want us to learn. So for your thesis statement on Wednesday, I want you to tell me, what do you want the reader to take from this story? And your job as you write the story is going to be to focus on some details to help us understand that purpose. And that comes out in your reflection and in your details and description. So just a reminder, as you're revising and editing your paper, I'm jumping ahead. Let's look at page 144 for a sample outline. So on page 144, this just gives you an idea of what an outline might look like for a narrative. Notice that it's just the steps in the narrative. It's basically a timeline, if you want to think of it that way. But notice that the essay outline still has an introduction and closing. This is what I wanted to remind you, that I think your narrative should still have an introduction, kind of like the one on 144, and then also that it should have a closing. Even more so than the sample essays in the book have, I think you should really use a conclusion to reflect. So sample outline, page 144, hopefully that'll help you with your own outline. As you revise and edit your draft, think about details and description. Go back to page 140 that gives you some principles of description, naming, detailing, ordering, and comparing, and incorporate those details into your paper for the purpose of highlighting whatever thesis, whatever lesson you want us to learn. So the thesis should be directly connected to the details and descriptions that you learn. Or that you use. For example, in the first essay, the writer describes the spiders and the moths to give us that detailed description, to let us understand the effect of the gossip that it has on Ryan, but then how it affects old Jack in the end as well. Okay, finally, I really just wanted to remind you the 3 elements of this essay. Narration, telling the story. Description, detailing the story. The principles on 140 should help. But reflection is key. Don't leave me with a story that I'm trying to figure out what you meant by it. You need to be able to reflect, perhaps in the conclusion of your essay, where you really tell me what you learned from this experience, because that's key. I've got to know the purpose behind this story. Why are you telling me this story? So think about these things. I would go ahead and reread chapter 10 since it's been a week since you read it, since you may have had a lot of turkey this week. I want you to really think about the elements of narration, description, and reflection as you start thinking about your outline and your thesis, the lesson that you want your readers to learn from your topic. If you want to run a topic by me before you turn in your outline and thesis, feel free to. Otherwise, I will give some comments back on Wednesday, well, probably Thursday, I guess, on your outline and rough thesis, just to give you an idea of where you are. So good luck writing your personal narrative. Let me know if you need any help in the meantime. Stick with the schedule, and I've enjoyed talking with y'all this semester. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I really hope you'll enjoy this personal narrative. I'm excited to read them. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns about the class. Thanks very much.